of the nonsense that goes on behind the scenes.
Recording up. Howdy. For YouTube people.
Welcome, everyone. This is another exciting review of the Cyberpunk Red ELO. A new DLC just came out involving the return of magic. And while ELO may not be the most exciting or straightforward thing, I think there is some value here to the Cyberpunk system that we should talk about. And I know, Ray, personally, you might not be the one who enjoys Cyberpunk Red the most. I mean, the ELO system the most.
Yeah, I'm gonna be frankly honest. Every time I see anything for Elflines online, yeah,
I just hello.
Hi.
Hmm.
I'm hearing you just fine.
There we go.
Okay. There we are. Having fun here.
Okay, so
yeah.
It's a Cyberpunk Red ELO review. Magic Returns. You're not the biggest fan of ELO, haven't played with it in the past, and for the purpose of this review, just so everyone knows, I have. So we're going to try to take some opposing sides for this, and maybe try to figure out some value for the Cyberpunk Red world.
Yeah.
Correct?
Exactly.
So welcome.
So, now, for people who don't know, Elflines Online is an addition to the Cyberpunk Red tabletop game, where you play in a virtual MMO as elves. It is a game of swords and sorcery packed into our cyberpunk hellscape and dystopian future. And while I think it's neat that it exists, I don't really care for it. I'm of the mind that if I want to play a game with elves, there is another game that I will not mention right now that I could go do. In fact, several. There's more than one. Take your favorite. As of right... Go ahead.
That is absolutely fair, sir. Mm-hmm. Sorry, please continue. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh, no, you're good. And every time I see something new for it in Cyberpunk Red come out, I just kind of roll my eyes at it and go, okay, they've added more to the silly elf game that I don't feel like touching on as a major point in a campaign, let alone even for like more than a mission. Because we've had, 4 DLCs centered around it at this point. The introduction of it, a whole bunch of NPCs for it, special monsters and places for it, and a card game?
Even a card game. At this point, I believe there's about 95 pages of material strictly for ELO.
Mm-hmm. And, I would love to see that, same amount of pages dedicated to other things that we deal with in Cyberpunk all the time. Pharmaceuticals, cyberware, your netrunners, the wizards of Cyberpunk. Where's the detail and information on all that? We have it little bits here and there, but it's not, why are we spending time with the elves instead of putting the detail into what I feel is a meat and potatoes of Cyberpunk?
But people enjoyed writing and doing things what they do, and that's where ELO started from, was basically a love of the writers. People have enjoyed it, and it has grown, and people ask more questions since then. I think what you might... And we could dig into this here for a minute, so let's not spend too much time going through the weeds here by any means. But as a quick caveat to your point, the information ELOs is written much more succinct and shorter than any of the Cyberpunk Red information. So it always feels like you're getting more with less pages. And at this point, now that we have almost 100 pages of ELO material, there's a lot you can do with the world. And, hopefully after we talk about some of the magic system, how it works, and some of these new dungeons and AI-based things, maybe I can give you some ideas to help bleed this into your world and a little bit of creativity here, or maybe even some of the viewers, so they get some value out of it. I mean, it is a labor of love, and I understand it would be nice to see a lot more of these other things here, but let's just give it a shot. Let me see if I can convince you otherwise here today, okay?
All right. All right. I'll let you get your chance, man. Go ahead and make that persuasion check and let's go.
Fair enough. Okay. For those of you who don't know, he did give a quick example of ELO. It's very much a cyberpunk MMO-based game that exists within inside the cyberpunk world. It is not necessarily if anything happens, these aren't your player characters, actual characters. They are just MMO-based characters. You could buy a max-level character at a bodega. So let's be real here. So let's not get too attached to these characters. It's just a video game inside your game. But there's an elder tree inside the actual Elflines universe from an alternate timeline. And, well, in this ELO game, with if you start to some of the lore, it hasn't really... In our world, it's been destroyed, but in this other world, it hasn't. And the elves have taken over and still had the great gift of magic, and they really just seized that world from themselves. But the miasma is the miasma after all. And over time, even every hero eventually falls to it. And now you've got this insurgence, these breaches in the ELO game, where you have the miasma even be able to take over player characters, copy them even, and create a very deadly world. And the miasma itself is actually an AI-based monster, making AI-based dungeons. And everyone's afraid of that AI, even in our world. And this gives really a chance for some of your player characters a chance to really go after that. Now, AI-based dungeons and doing things might sound reminiscent to you as a 2020 player, because that's starting to sound like architects, if you ask me.
Yeah. Though all these are obviously elf-based fantasy settings, where in 2020 you could have, Space Wars, as somebody's thing, or, somebody's taken their favorite coffee club and turned it into their architect, right? Or as we used to call them, data forts.
I really think, given some chance of some new ideas here, you could probably utilize these for some data forts. But the miasma in the game itself is very PvP based, and there's, people can permanently lose their characters ELO. Why go through any of this stuff? It's to get the spell stones that give your characters the ability to cast spells. And there's a lot of spells in this DLC. It is, by the way, a free DLC, mind you. So we can complain about the material all you want, but it is something free they are giving us out of a labor of love. So
one should not complain too loudly about free things.
However, something you might enjoy in this, there's with this breach, this idea of this pocket reality, and you've got these miasma storms infesting into the game. That all sounds like ELO stuff, and why should I care because of the elves and stuff. Before we go into some of the ways you can some of how they describe it here, there's a lot of ways you can hide your real identity in the ELO universe. Whether it be trying to utilize it as a source, a secure way to have meetings, or maybe even something far more nefarious, plan jobs, leak corporate information. I think even some of the new monsters in here, some of the new AI-based dungeon threats, I think you would find, if you really look closely, some of them are even more powerful than, or on par with daemons of actual architects. Oh. And it could be interesting to see people wanting to try to actually utilize these tech-wise in the real space, considering how well they can actually affect you and your architects around you outside of the video game as part of their attack patterns from inside the game.
Do we want to hop down and show that off right now?
Absolutely, I would love to.
All right, let's go take a look. So, sorry for the flip through, people, but on, the very last page is what we're talking about here.
Okay. Okay. The things that kind of in charge of these miasma breaches are on par with a high-ranking netrunner.
So, let's see. Here we are.
Now, you have this thing here that can not only, let's see, how did they put it? This miasma monster. I can't. Miasmatism? Miasmatasm? Can only survive as long as miasma it possesses lives. It
Okay.
has to be infecting people. This miasma is easily identified by their eyes. Whenever the miasma itself whenever something the miasma is possessing takes damage, the miasma thing in charge will actually take an equal amount of that damage.
Okay.
It
And
cannot be targeted otherwise within ELO. Or else miasma host is within 50 meters of a player's elf. It may jack into any net architect within 50 meters of that player's Segatari Rush Revolution system. For as long as the Segatari Rush Revolution system remains within an active net architect.
so,
So,
yeah,
go
just
ahead. By all means, like, say what you were going to say. I don't even need to
yeah,
say it for you.
because so if I'm playing my Secretary Rush at work, at I don't know, Biotechnia, I'm on break, checking in my
Yeah.
ELO account, and if I happen to be next to my work desk, you're telling me this thing could try to start hacking into Biotechnia systems through my game console.
Yes, and it might actually all be part of some grand plan of Secretary to utilize its player base to do a massive data breach across numerous sectors. Not targeting one, just targeting anything it can through the course of a video game based event. It's not like a lot of people would gather outside of a building for a video game based event to try to battle imaginary monsters or anything. I don't see the real world parallel, do you?
No, I can't quite catch on to it.
Okay. Yeah. One day, maybe we'll just be able to catch all of them. I
Yeah.
don't know. Anyways, so in your cyberpunk world, Secretary can be used as a various form of data breaches, net-based hacking, or an even idea to help maybe give your netrunner an ability to try to actually, you know, maybe try to chase after this proverbial, nut, so to speak, because if you want to compare this thing's capabilities in great detail to any other daemon, you'll find, I think, most netrunner-based characters are going to want this thing over the daemon.
Mm-hmm.
I would want to have this in my net architect. Okay, maybe there isn't a way to cache these things. Maybe you need to mod it and get a little creative with its homebrew stuff. Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the tech, some of the items these things have with the miasma breaches are all really interesting ideas. And these breaches could happen anywhere inside the ELO game to create this dungeon, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Make an architect, make a dungeon, make some monsters here. You can create some wonderful things that even in the real world, no, I want these things because of this, and I'm not going to give you the information of where that corporate person is until you bring me this. I'm not going to leak corporate information unless it's with inside my ELO safe bar where me and all these people hang out with, and this is the best way to actually leak and source corporate information.
Okay. So, now I'm seeing some places where we can use ELO in the background of a campaign, really.
Okay. You could, and if people actually enjoy it to some degree, maybe it's because of that espionage, that meeting, that cloak and dagger style game. Maybe it's because of the massive data breaches it's doing and trying to find the rabbits it creates, or the plot holes and problems. It can bleed into other things and be something you have to deal with, like almost like going into a sector of town where you have to dress up and operate a certain way to get the job done. ELO allows a level of protection people can to be criminals but not actually suffer the consequences themselves. And if a good enough netrunner group can actually start to hack it, that's a world of possibility of problems. And that's just this at face value. Like, we could dig in far deeper if you want. So before you start looking over the spell rules or anything else, which I think we should now go back to now that you're starting to sound interested.
I mean, we're having some practical application for some of the stuff we're seeing. Because if Segatari can create something that does this, what do other corporations have? Or are they trying to get a hold of this? Because that's a big theme in Cyberpunk. Because I really want to take the kind of what I feel is a lot of extra world building that they've put into ELO that just seems to be lacking in most of the rest of Cyberpunk. And get it, get something out of it.
Completely. Okay. Anything comes down to the value you have for it. Let's not make do that. But there is a bunch of new DV tables and stuff too that might give you different ideas of how to utilize that for weapons.
Okay.
Like there's that opportunity to see. It would always be nice to see them go in this level of detail and other things. Sure. Okay, but let's talk a little bit more about why I think there's a lot of good here.
Okay.
And they should take this level of detail going forward because there's new spell systems. Great. With that, they have a lot of different types of spells.
Okay.
And ELO used to only really exist based off you've got your combat, you've got your bows and arrows, you've maybe got some poison, and that's really it. Weapons tech doesn't allow you to make magical weapons, and you play instrument to be a bard to get group bonuses. But with spells, you can do some of those things.
Okay.
If we're going to keep digging the ELO, definitely we got to find these other uses for skills. But now we have this different DV table, which has this barrage and storm style spells, ball spells, ray spells. No association to you or in the digital sense.
Oh, definitely not.
However, I mean, maybe that's why you don't get along. It's all the digital nature of you two. However, you have a lot of ways now to do different types of things. You can actually make a proper range caster. You can literally, with the new rules in the system, create a brand new Elflines character and actually start with a spellstone. So you can actually be making a magic character right from the ground up.
All right.
And yes, magic, cyberpunk, I get that. Unless you're Shadowrun based, I recognize you Shadowrun people. Just saying, I feel for you. But with this might help actually give you some different ideas too to how to actually play some quick hacks as well. However, or how to use this DV table maybe for some other things.
So, yeah, what we got
considering
here?
They're giving people the ability to customize some of their spells to actually do. Is that a 8-meter radius around you? Oh yeah, wave spells. Yeah, to be able to hit everyone around you that you want to hit. You can totally choose not to do friendly fire damage.
Really?
Right. Yes. The interesting thing about wave spells is you're rolling twice, which is maybe the one thing about the wording I would have changed here, is they very much should have done...
Roll twice, take the highest, something like that.
Yeah, there should have been some other way to not do... basically explain advantage here. Because basically what you're doing, you're rolling with advantage. You're taking the best of two rolls. But you're getting the ability to roll twice in this case, so that way if you fail, you have a second chance to actually do all the damages.
Alright. I mean, that's neat. That's not something we've seen in Cyberpunk yet. And then we've got like 9 different attacks besides wave spells. Because wave is just DC 15, or DV, sorry. Just mixing up my terms. 15. But,
You get to be a 15, and you get 2 chances to do so. You can even distinguish who's getting attacked, or not getting attacked.
And looking at this, breath spells just kind of look like shotgun damage, and explosive spells seem like hand grenades just going off. So that runs very similar. So
you get explosive spells, work similar. You got even breath spells, work similar to shotgun-based spells.
Yeah. So that brings more of our cyberpunk into ELO. So that's, at least rules-wise.
And those and the AoE based off wave spells, I could totally see for some things like, I don't know, a red mist dispenser in the actual world of ELO. Or monitoring range of certain things, arc-based things like You know, like an actual arc turret that zaps people anyone in range.
All right.
Very easy to see certain things like this as well in terms of defense turrets capabilities. But there's that similarity how this works. Okay, except now that you're getting in Magic, you're starting talking about elemental weaknesses, which is really neat because everything now is weak to a type of element in terms of monsters in the game.
Yeah, I looked at that, and that is whenever you do a critical injury on the creature, if I recall.
Correct. Let's see. Takes damage from a spell.
Oh, okay.
No, it's not. So, like, if you have elemental weakness to, as a rock-based person, I imagine you would probably have elemental weakness to, I don't know, water or wind because of erosion. So if I hit you with a spell with that type of element, it's automatically going to you're automatically going to get this debuff until combat's over.
I mean, we got a fine example here, the Golem. Yeah. Yeah, as I use a Golem myself to communicate with people. You hose him down with a water spell, and he takes, let's see, -4 to move and -2 to all checks for just getting hosed down.
One moment. I have to take this phone call.
Okay. We'll pause for right now.
In the case of, like, elemental weaknesses, you being a golem, hit you with a water-based spell, you would automatically take a -4 to your move and a -2 to all checks.
Oof.
Okay. And I just want to make sure I'm reading this right, because we do make mistakes. I could be wrong.
A lot of
Elemental weakness takes damage from a spell with an elemental that matches their weakness. They suffer its corresponding elemental injury. Only one of each elemental injury can affect a target at a time.
Okay.
So you can't stack all 4 elemental injuries on someone. But yeah, like, you're rock, here's water, you're not going anywhere. Because ELO combat's supposed to be quick, okay?
Right. That makes sense. And
This gives people that different play style to actually utilize Magic with their team to actually ensure different bonuses or give themselves advantages in certain situations, or even be able to do really fun things with Magic, like actually heal or teleport your entire Elfline to you, kind of shit.
oh yeah, a lot of different effects in the spells. What were we looking at? Like 40 different ones?
There's like 80 spells in total. I give or take like 1 or 2. I might have counted wrong, but there are close to, if not 80 spells on the dot.
So, and it looks like spells, we can cast them standard and enhanced, and if I recall what I read earlier about enhanced, that is consuming the spell stone. It's done after you use it. Is that correct?
Let's look real quick.
Because that was at the top.
Because, I mean, I know you can just buy them from the endgame store, so it's like...
Okay.
And that's what happens, so be it. We're talking 10 eddies for a spellstone here.
Okay, if you are already attuned to a spellstone, as a rate of fire 1 action, you may consume a spellstone to enhance one of your spells. Enhanced spells are more powerful, more difficult to cast, and have higher costs. You may only have one enhanced spell at a time. Enhancing a spell will de-enhance your existing enhanced spell. You may also consume a spell stone to de-enhance an enhanced spell. Enhancing a spell stone changes its name.
Correct, because it's part of the name table from earlier to help with that, like, lore and pull in actually saying weird and made-up words to help cast your spells or add to just the effect. But, that's from a bygone day of tabletop. Definitely. Hopefully not, but...
Okay. And just to cover this real quickly, it looks like for each spell stone, because we didn't go into this, it has 3 spells, and giving them a new... when we have it, we have a 1 times cost skill, Magic. which we can level up as normal and is tied to intellect. Huh. Something you can do in the game tied to intellect. Reminds me of 2020.
Completely. Because intelligence helped with interface checks in 2020. This is very much bringing a lot of that. And this is why I think utilizing ELO as a basis to do deep dive architecture diving could be used by any DM, because you have a lot of that premise. Even the magic kind of stuff and things like that is just a way of basically giving people access to the console.
Alright. I mean, this interesting in that, and I feel good that we're covering this a little bit, because completely missed over it. And apparently we can also evolve our spell stone by consuming a second stone, and it lets us swap out our spells. Randomly. It's all apparently random.
Yes, there's some variance in with that, and I believe that's on the later table here to kind of help with some of this.
Yeah, page 6.
To roll around with spell. Yes.
So. Okay. So just a brief sidetrack back to that. Gotta be sure we know how this works, right?
Correct.
So, and yeah, whole ton of spells. There's a couple that I pulled out. You've already mentioned one, the teleport, which is walk Elfline.
Correct.
So you can basically summon nearby guildmates, whatnot, or if you enhance it, anyone who's logged in at the time. So, and then the other one was Siphon Stone. Luckily, these are all alphabetical in here. Where you actually, so you can corrupt your elf stone, and it gives different effects on the spells. So
a lot of the monsters from the miasma, when they attack you, have a chance to automatically corrupt stones. And a lot of getting some spell stones too, you can get corrupted from enemies that drop. Okay, and corruption is a good thing and a bad thing, because having a corrupt stone on you, you might take more damage or could be susceptible to things. So you're playing that risk-reward game, which would be nice to see in some other aspects.
Yeah,
Like net runners and stuff.
Or more into pharmaceuticals, drugs. You know, why don't we call it an overdose? Just throwing something out. Yeah, you overdose, it gives you an enhanced effect, but now you're taking a penalty of some sort.
Gonna need to get cryotank, go through a cryotank treatment to help get your body washed and get back to a base level. Something like that could be absolutely great. Okay, there's a lot of magic in here, though. I mean, there's some spells in here allow casters even do 66 damage.
Ooh.
Okay, so I mean, there's capability and premise here, and there's a lot less worry of if you make something too overpowered. It's just the cyberpunk video game. I think there's be a really easy way to make some things, like some of the monsters drop some really interesting equipment, like magical items, as you would expect, or have really neat armors that, this could be a safe space for you to play test some homebrew equipment before actually letting people to have it in the real space. Maybe it's a way to actually do. Person did a data breach and hit a bunch of schematics from Malorian arms in 4 different dungeons in Elflines. First people to actually get to the end of the dungeon and clear the boss actually gets one of 4 pieces of the cipher needed to unlock this, catch of Mandalorian arm schematics they left hidden in Elflines. I may not want to play Elflines, but everyone loves Malorian arms.
And
and
it gives a reason to interact with Elflines. Because,
okay.
And that's really important to have when they are producing stuff for it. Is it usable? That's something we talked about when we talked about Cyber Fists of Fury, is how usable is this for players?
I think I think it's useful for not only players but NPCs for your story. It's a safe space for if you're playing a corpo game. It's a safe place for your corpo characters to leak information and have meetings and maybe not get caught.
Mm.
It's a safe place for somebody to basically double dip in a job. As part of that leaking information or trying to manipulate multiple sides. People could just literally create their own little medieval place somewhere in a safe zone to use as downtime stuff or talk long distances across town, like actually make this is the only place I do my fixer dealings. I don't do it in the real space. I wouldn't even acknowledge the fact I am this fixer.
Mm. Which is
Okay.
an interesting
Oh,
idea. Yeah.
you know there's certain monsters I can get out, or maybe certain aspects of code hidden in things. Maybe Segatari is happily playing both sides in terms of an information war going on. There's maybe that fixer that you really need that part from, or that engine, or that gun is only going to help you if you get them their rare drop out of a dungeon.
Mm.
Because you can't buy it. Yeah, you can buy it on the market, but it's going for about 15,000 eddies, and he doesn't want to pay that. If you just want to pay 15,000 eddies, you can skip this, or you can go as a group spend 2,500 eddies on max level characters with gear, and go to this dungeon.
All right. I mean that does give options, which I'm always one for options. I'm never gonna say that I'd prefer an option line be cut off.
Okay, there's even for the more adult sense, people out there going like, I don't know, as if
Ooh. I think we're having a data breach here with Ock. One moment. He seems to have stopped broadcasting via voice systems. One moment. All right. Congratulations on beating back Netwatch.
yay.
Or maybe the Segatari had enough of us trying to talk about ELO. Maybe an irritated fan, since they seem to go after you more than me. That's
If anyone actually is watching this upload in the future, I'm terribly sorry for all the problems on this one. But let's hopefully try to get this, resolved and taken care of here.
absolutely.
Uh, so we've talked, you have a couple of different ideas of how things to use. The magic system works pretty easily. There's even some spell stones that I can actually utilize without an action. Like the one that allows you to turn any of your touch, wave, ray, storm, like take any of those into a different type without an action. But I don't even need to make a check for them either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Um,
basically letting you adjust what chart you're firing from.
Correct. The enemies are neat. I think there's some ideas of how to utilize this kind of within their actual your cyberpunk world or any cyberpunk game system. It's just a matter of how creative you want to be with it. Now, to run a game in it forever, that might be difficult. How people's level of involvement might be more problematic. Who's to say?
Yeah.
However, I think there's some way we can utilize the systems. I think there's some way it can add value, really get your players outside of their normal things. And I think there's some excellent opportunity here for horror stories.
Digital
Just
horror, you say?
Mm-hmm. If you're talking about something from inside the game that can be able to take over anything around a player, that has value and interest in a world, regardless of the immediate value. There's the course espionage games that can happen inside of it. There's the terrible things like being trapped inside the Segatari thing with no way out. Sure, are these main focus cyberpunk things? No, but even as a background to have cyberpunk, you utilize ELO when you might be low players on a session,
Mm-hmm.
might be a really good thing to have in one's back pocket.
Yeah. Hey, we can't do this op. Why? Jerry's missing, man. Well, we'll just wait for him. Let's log into ELO. You know, we
Yeah,
can't.
let's go to that pleasure town of body sculpts and depravity that happens inside the ELO game.
Mm-hmm. What happens when you start dealing with the hackers and modders of ELO?
Could be a big thing in the university district.
Mm-hmm. You know, especially since ELO seems to be, especially now that we've seen the AI running it, our first real red cross-city hacking device. When you get into it, because wherever that, it's running from, it is accessing your Segatari and stuff around you.
So, for like a cop game or something, that entire city block that's been taken over because like there was a big college group or high school group doing some kind of like ELO event.
Mm-hmm.
You had 200 people all jacked in, decided to go do a miasma event. They all get corrupted by the miasma. Now you're suffering major problems in an entire district in Night City.
Mm-hmm.
As it begins to spread to anyone else. This reminds me of like this event that happened in a Warcraft of Worlds kind of game of a monster that could affect people with a debuff. And the debuff, as part of its takedown, could jump to anyone within X radius. The problem is the debuff. If you put your pet away, the debuff stayed on your pet. So if people accidentally brought their pets back out in major cities, it literally there's biologists and actually plague specialists that actually have studied this numerous times over of what happened, but it literally destroyed WoW servers. If you know what I'm talking about, you get the reference of the World of Warcraft virus. But this could literally happen in your Night City game now. Max Tech's getting involved. Corporations could be getting involved. You could create a major event around a major problem in your cyberpunk world in Night City, in a district throughout the city, all because of the miasma itself. And even if they unplug everyone, which they could easily do to save the city at this point, because that's how it's designed, you're going to sacrifice hundreds of people in the process.
Not to mention, who says this event is intended from Segatari?
It could be. They could be how they're utilizing to steal information from companies. Mm-hmm. Alleged. How the plan is, but they can still hide the like. It's just a game. We don't know what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Actually cause data breach problems and actually weaken defenses in areas. They could be testing things. The lateral tech of what you could do with this seems immense, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
The dungeon idea is neat, and if you were to now look at this idea and go back through ELO volumes 1 through 3, kind of, the basis, the actual world guide, the dungeon guide, the raid guide of the world, take all that bits and pieces and put it all together. There's a lot you can do with this now to really affect your world and run something very interesting back and forth if your players wanted to get involved and invested with this.
Yeah, I don't know if you've convinced me to run a full ELO campaign, but you have convinced me to look over what they've done for sure and try to apply it instead of just going, oh, it's more elf crap.
That's fair.
Yeah.
It's a step in the right direction. We'll take it.
Mm-hmm. And maybe if that's something my players want to do in the future, running a game, or somebody persuasive enough goes to run something like that, I won't turn it down out of hand either. Mm-hmm. So, and I think that's a good thing to hit upon with all this is that while we would like to, as players, as GMs, we'd like to see stuff like this just applied to more of what brought us to the game. There's nothing bad here. as you were saying, when the lights went out for you, so to speak, if we were seeing this much care put into other things, I think we'd be doing a lot of great stuff with Cyberpunk. Yeah.
Yes, they covered a lot of the bases. There's plenty of room here for what people can do with it now. They should give you some good ideas around the game. The new structure is neat. There's a way to use the DV tables for some interesting things. Even some of the spells might give people some neat ideas, and maybe it might even give them a chance to expand on some of the other skills, like weapons tech, being able to do enchanting or ruin making inside ELO, or even actually utilize things like the play musical instrument to give people temporary bonuses or help with healing and stuff. Bards be bards, yo.
Mm-hmm.
But it is just for the fun of it. Like it, there's a lot about ELO that is a Witcher light to kind of help people bleed into Cyberpunk Red, or help somebody of the Witcher people maybe want to bleed over this way, and that's good for the company to do.
Mm-hmm.
Are we at the point now that you could forever run a think Curse of Strahd, quote unquote, style of game in ELO? Maybe, with the creativity and work, but why would you do that, and how much longer would that campaign take? If it's what you want your group supposed to do, though, have fun and do it.
Oh,
It's
absolutely.
ultimately your choice now.
Mm-hmm. And that's the big thing. Have fun with your games. If find a game, find people that you like, and go for it. Whatever nonsense we come up with, because at the end of the day, it's all nonsense. We might as well have fun doing it.
Right now, it was once suggested by some of the Artel Sorium members that there's a lot of the enemies in the ELO book that you could just reflavor as Biotechnica monsters unleashed out on the world. So, even at a face value, the quote-unquote enemies, as ridiculous they may seem in ELO, is still a stack block you could be utilizing, and not something you have to completely making from scratch.
Mm-hmm.
Even some of these things with some of their unique abilities could be fun. It's slightly tweaked in a way, because after all, Biotechnica does some weird experiments. There's the bear with 3-arm martial arts. Just saying.
Man-eating plant tree.
Yeah, yeah. And the tree that eats people. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, so it's about leaking in that lore. This connects certain little things to a lot of game stuff, so I think the lore of this is written well. Anyone for the review stuff later, yes, we're not going to completely read 80 spells for you today. It is a free DLC. You should totally check it out.
Mm-hmm.
But we figured a good opportunity of talking about the theology here would help maybe give us all some perspective on how these can be used, and maybe some of the ideas we should be able to stem from it. ELO, in my opinion, should always be looked at a homebrewer's paradise, and you shouldn't discredit it at face value, no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
So next time we do this, maybe we actually start at the beginning and see if I can really sell you in some ELO aspects.
All right. Well, we'll have to see, man.
And hopefully I don't get attacked by NetWatch again next time as we try to stream and discuss this.
That would be nice of them to lay off. But until then, guys, thanks for hanging out with us. I hope this has been useful.
I've had fun. I hope you had fun. We will try to do something a little bit more formatted and scripted next time without the major crashes and technical issues.
Yeah, that real handy. And for people who watch us on YouTube, thank you. I hope, again, this has been useful.
As for streamers, thanks everyone. I have to actually, now that the recording's over, I would love to hang out a bit more, but there